Hello, very good evening, very welcome on my YouTube channel, and I hope that you're doing really well, even in these not very easy times. So, very welcome on my very first aviation stream in English, questions and answers. I feel a little bit nervous, by the way, because this is the very first time. And by the way, I've just started, so if you get any problems with the audio or video, please let me know. So far, I don't see too many comments, I don't see too many people, but it's normal. I didn't expect a lot of visitors today. Let's see how it goes after that. Okay, so as I have said, or I didn't say it, my name is denisokan, I am from Russia, and so far I am a 737 captain with a flight instructor endorsement, and in the recent past I've been an instructor also with a typewriting instructor and typewriting examiner endorsements also. So what we are going to do today is the very first try. So how we normally do it in Russian, I start with pre-selected questions which I get from you in the comments, or sometimes I prepare topics by myself. So today I prepared one topic. It will be a topic about me because I have already got some questions from you guys regarding my past, my family, and the way how I had become a pilot. So I will be talking for another maybe half an hour about this. At the end I will answer a question which I found in the comments through the announcements of this stream. Very nice question, by the way. And so that's it. Once I finished with these two topics, we will continue with questions and answers. Please feel free to ask your questions. But so far, if there is a lot of comments here, I will be not able to read all of them. So please be patient. So to keep your questions with you for a while, for another maybe 20 or minutes or half an hour. And anytime you want to support my channel, there is a donation link in the comments, donation alert. So you may use your credit card or whatever. Or also, if you want me to see your question here directly in the chat, you may use a super chat option. There is a dollar symbol here in the comments window. So this is another way to let me see your question here. Okay, thank you very much. So let's start. So my name is Denis. I said it 2 times, by the way. So I'm from Russia and I'm a pilot. So how I became a pilot? So when I was young, there was almost no way not to become a pilot because I was born in an aviation family. My father, he is a former pilot nowadays. He used to fly several types of Soviet aircraft. He started flying Antonov 2, and then he flew Antonov 24, Tupolev 54 as an instructor, in Ilyushin 76. Then he came back to Tupolev 54 and he retired in 2008. And his parents, they also were connected to aviation. They worked on the grounds at a small airport of Rubtsovsk. And when I was a kid, when I was a child, I used to go with them to their job, and I had a lot of free time playing around the aircraft, and honestly it was really exciting for me. My bigger brother, he is an aviation engineer, and my mother, she was a flight attendant. So I will show you my parents in their youth. So this is my father, this is my mother, and this is a picture of year, I think that this was a new year, 1997. I was studying, it was my first year of study at the Buguruslan flight school. My bigger brother, Vadim, he was studying at Omsk Aviation College. My father, he was a pilot of Ilyushin 76 at this moment. Okay, so in 1996, when I graduated from the school, I had to come at a decision which profession to select. I had 3 choices, and besides thinking about aviation, I was also thinking about becoming a programmer, or I enjoyed playing tennis, so I was thinking about playing tennis also. But but once upon a time I sat like I am sitting now, and I started to think which profession will be interesting for me. I imagined myself to be a programmer sitting at the computer in the office 5 days in a row, then 2 days off, another 5 days, another 2 days off from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. I decided that this maybe it would be interesting, but who knows how many years I can work in this with this schedule. And then I started to think about the profession of a tennis player. So I was a realistic man, so I considered myself that this was impossible to become another Pete Sampras or Andre Agassi. The only thing which I could have achieved was a coach. So it was interesting, but maybe not that enough. So the only thing which I started to think of, or to think about the times, the only thing remained was aviation. I was interested in aviation since I was a small kid, because as I have said, I was born in an aviation family, and all my games were around aviation. But the time I'm talking about 1996, it was really difficult time for my country and for the aviation industry in my country as well. So a lot of pilots, hundreds of thousands of pilots, they already had lost their jobs. And my father, he experienced big problems with his job at this period. And I knew that there were a lot of problems in the flight schools. And I think I have to say, I have to describe a little bit how young men become pilots in my country. So in Russia, there are several government flight schools, and the education in that period, it was free. So nowadays there are two options: either a free education for a man or a woman, it doesn't matter nowadays, and there is an option to pay for your education also. But in that period there was only option to get this education for free. But as long as all flight schools were funded by the government, and the situation was really crazy, it was a big crisis, so the funding was not enough, and they didn't have fuel for giving flight hours to a lot of graduates. But anyway, even knowing all these problems, I decided to try to become a pilot. So another 2 years I spent studying at the Bogoruslan flight school. So these are pictures from my very first year of education there. And in 1998, I was really lucky to graduate on time, even though there were still a lot of problems, but the situation became a little bit better. And for the students who were good at lessons, at classes, and who also participated in the flight school life, for example, who were sportsmen, and I was a sportsman. I was playing basketball for the flight school team. I was also playing tennis for the flight school team. So I finished the flight school on time. After that, of course, there was no chance to get a job, and I continued education at the Civil Aviation of Academy in St. Petersburg, again in Russia, for another 4 years. Unfortunately, I didn't find any picture of this period here. And in 2002, I graduated, and I didn't work for a year. And in 2003, I was very lucky to get hired by Sibaviatrans. This airline doesn't exist nowadays, but in that period, this was a quite small airline with, I think, maybe 7 Antonov 24s, 2 Yakovlev 40s, 1 Tupolev 154, and a certain number of Tupolev 134. So I was lucky to get a job as a first officer on the biggest aircraft in the fleet, Tupolev 154. I will not describe how big luck it was, but really it was a very big luck to get hired as a first officer on Tupolev 154, and I still sometimes don't believe that it could have happened to me. It was fantastic. So these are several pictures of that period. So this is me at the age of 24, and this is my very first arrival at my hometown of Barnaul. By the way, I forgot to say this airline, the base was in Krasnoyarsk. This is a Siberian city, and we used to fly from Norilsk. Norilsk is a northern region of my country, which is a very tricky place to live. By the way, it's very cold during winters and almost during summers also, and honestly, summertime is really short, maybe a couple of weeks, maximum 1 month. So this is a very good place to start your flying career, by the way. So I worked for a year in CB Aviatrans as a first officer on Tupolev 154, and in 2004 I was really lucky again to get hired by Siberia Airlines, which was the second major airline in the country, and I joined the base in my native city Barnaul, which is again a Siberian city, by the way. This is my crew. This is Tupolev 154, one of the prettiest birds ever in civil aviation, and the crew consisted of 4 specialists, 2 pilots, 1 navigator and 1 flight engineer. And on your right there is a picture, so it was taken I think in 2016. So at this time I was already a pilot of a 737, and this is my father, a retiree, a former pilot of the Tupolev 154, and this is a monument in Tolmachovo. This is an airport of Novosibirsk, and we both flew this particular aircraft also. In 2005, I moved to Moscow, to the Moscow base, and very shortly, among others, I was selected I was promoted to a new fleet, which we still didn't have any 737s in our fleet, but there were a lot of plans to get airplanes from United Airlines. And as we signed an agreement with United, first 30 crews, I think, yes, first 30 crews were trained to fly the 737s directly in the USA in the United Training Center. And for me, that was a really exciting period of 36 days. The transition course as a first officer of a 737. So this is my diploma, and this is our very first aircraft, the 737-500, on its first arrival to Novosibirsk. In the left bottom corner you see this aircraft. In the right bottom corner, this is me, this is myself, before the base training. So after finishing the simulator training, we came back to my country, and there was a base training, which means you need to do 4 flights, 4 circuits around the airfield with an instructor on an empty aircraft, no passengers. And after that, we were trained. There was a line training which consisted of 10 sectors only. And I became a pilot of a 737 on 25th of August 2005 when I conducted my final check. These are nice pictures from my very first year of captainship. So in October 2006, so in a year after I found myself being a first officer, I became a captain on this type. So in the left upper corner you see the picture from my first solo flight as a captain. This is Sochi Adler Airport, and bottom pictures, both pictures were taken also at Sochi. This was a very exciting flight. By the way, we had a malfunction during descent. We had problems with both autopilots and both flight director systems. It was a night flight, so the autopilots behaved really strangely. So every autopilot, it was doing its own life, so it didn't follow the path correctly. So the decision was to disconnect the autopilot to engage the second one. Then maybe in a moment I found that the second autopilot was not working also. So disconnected the autopilots, and at the same time the flight director system was showing weather, as we used to say. So it was showing not the things which were expected to be shown on the display. So we disconnected the flight director system, and remember it was the third month I was a captain of this aircraft. So we safely landed at Sochi. We made a decision to not to depart back to Moscow, so we spent overnight there. And next morning engineers came and they found that both flight control computers had failed. Halas, but the pictures were nice. Anyway, in 2008, Siberia Airlines divided into two parts, Siberia Airlines and Globus Airline, and later on they were united again under a brand of Seven Airlines. And in the past year, 2019, the decision was made to get back, to move all fleets to Siberia Airlines again. So there is no Globus Airline at this moment. But these pictures were taken at, I think, on 2008 when they started flying on this aircraft. On the left side you see 737-400s colored in Globus colors, and in the upper right corner this is me. I think this was a very first flight on the 737NG. We took our first NGs in August 2008, and I think this picture was taken in the very first flight from Moscow to Samara. Okay, so this is my story. So I spent several years in Globus being a captain, then in a year I became a flight instructor, then we moved to Globus. I was doing instructor duties, then I was promoted to manager positions. So there was a period when I was holding different managerial seats. I was a flight instructor of the flight operations, chief flight instructor, blah 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 blah, and so on. And in 2017 I came to a decision. I came to a decision a little bit early in 2016. So I wanted to get some international experience, to see new airports, new destinations, just to challenge myself how I can or not work with people from different countries of different nationalities. So I decided to change the airline, and so far I'm working in one of the Middle East airlines. You can easily find the name of this airline, or you can guess the name of this airline, but sorry, according to the policy of the airline, I cannot tell you directly which airline I'm working for now. So that's it. This is my story. So it took only 17 minutes, so we are very good with the time. And now I go on with a question which I have got from one of my subscribers. So Denis, what's your opinion on certain countries, China, Russia, still using meters for altitude, meters per second for speed, etc., while the rest of the world isn't? What do you think about controllers speaking in their native language instead of English for national airlines? We love doing that in France, but Spanish controllers will talk in Spanish for Spanish airlines, Italy in Italian, etc. This is a very good question. By the way, both questions are very good. The first one, I didn't flew to China too much. I did, I think, 3 flights in my career to China, and I fully agree that flying meters on aircraft which is sharpened for flying in feet, it's not a good idea, by the way. I strongly believe, this is my strong position, that the aviation should be standard. So I mean the rules of the airspace procedures, leveling, this is safety. So this should be very standard for the whole world, but unfortunately some parts of the world, they don't think the same way. And especially China, as you have mentioned, and my native country also. There in Russia, so how do they fly? And nowadays they use feet, I mean levels in feet, when you fly above the transition level, and if you fly below the transition level, I mean departures, arrivals, airdrome operations, you fly using meters and QFEs. This is a very tricky thing, by the way. Actually, you are not flying meters and you are not flying QFEs as long as you set QNH and you set feet for the altitudes. But the ATC, they will provide you with meters and QFEs. So you have to use tables. We have Jepson tables in the charts, and you have to always cross-check meters in feet with meters QFE with feet with QNH, and this is what can be really bad. I mean, the mistake is very, very probable. So there is a high risk of mistakes, and mistakes are done sometimes frequently, and I was several times in a situation where my less experienced colleague, I mean the experience in flying using these procedures, as long as tables in the charts, they are constructed that way that the rows of meters in QFE and a row of QFE and feet, they are very close. So the desire is to select the wrong altitude, I mean the height using the QFE. So and I saw it by my own eyes in one of my flights. Even we had briefed this. I showed this table. I said, this is a very tricky thing. Please don't mistake. Don't take the numbers from this row. You need to take the numbers from this one. But as long as we use iPads and the range in the iPad was set up that way that this row, it was hidden. So it was not showing on the page. And we were doing the approach, and my first officer, she was a lady, by the way, she was 2 times she was trying to set the incorrect altitude. So I saw it by my eyes. Luckily, I've got a good experience on flying that way, so I noticed that at the very beginning, so the situation didn't arise. But I swear, a lot of pilots do that mistakes when flying to my country. So in my country, they already started the process of slightly changing from QFEs to QNH, from meters to QFEs, and I think that they have got 1, 2, maybe 3 or 4 airports so far which use only QNH and only feet. St. Petersburg, Simferopol, but Simferopol, you know, it's a very different story. Let's don't talk about it. So St. Petersburg and a couple of destinations. Honestly, I forgot the names because I didn't fly to there. Okay, anyway. As for the second question, speaking in a native language, yes, this is one of the most frequent questions asked by my commentators, by the subscribers here on my YouTube channel. But the question is, why do these guys use English if they fly in Russia? This is not very patriotic, you know. And I even had to create a video in which I explained why speaking in a standard way with the same language is that thing which enhances safety greatly, and speaking in different language is not. And it's very easy because even you're flying to a busy airspace, let's say to Paris or let's say to Moscow, if you don't know the local language, French or Russian, if you have a lot of aircraft there, especially when the weather is a little bit tricky, some thunderstorms around, and you don't understand what controllers are telling to other aircraft, so your situational awareness is not that effective. You understand? So when everyone speaks common language, let's say like you fly to Dubai, to whatever, to India, by the way, so all these countries, they use English language, and the situational awareness is much better if in comparison if you fly to Moscow, for example. So my position is just there are no other opinion, but if you fly to in an international airport, the language used must be single. And English language is an international language, so all pilots need to use English for their radio telephonic communications. Yes, that's it. So I have finished with the prepared pre-selected questions, so now I'll be really happy to get questions from you. So give me a couple of minutes, maybe less. I will try to go through your comments which you have left here so far. Make peace, not war. Perfect. Almost here. It was me. By the way, thank you very much for supporting the initiative of speaking English. For me, it's really a challenge, and this is a way how I can improve my language. I mean, how to get more confidence. And I already got comments from other Russian guys who had also supported the initiative, saying that for them it will be interesting and useful also. So they want to improve their language skills also. English, no problem, mechanic. Have you ever piloted the Max? Yes. My very first flight on the Max was in April 2018, and since that time I have done a lot of flights on the Max. The last flight was done to Moscow in the beginning of March 2019, and I really miss this aircraft because this aircraft, I used to fly 737 Classic, 400, 300, 500, 737 NGs, 800 and 900 ER, and the Max 8, and I swear the Max 8 is so it looks like that the designers, so they have taken all the best features from the Classic. I mean, the controllability, how the aircraft is being handled, how the efficiency of the brakes, how you feel the brakes, and the gentle flying of the 800. And at the same time, the fuel efficiency is remarkably better than 800. So let's say that if for 800 she consumes around 2,500 kilograms per hour, averagely, of course. If you talk about Max 8, so the numbers are like 2.1 ton or 2.2 tons per hour. So you see. All right. All of you from Russia. No, I think that most of the subscribers, all the commentators here in the chat are from Russia now. Biggest part of us from Russia, yes. Denis, nice English, thank you very much. Oh, there's a guy who says that I didn't tell this story in Russian. All right, so next time on the next stream I will do it in Russian, but so far I was almost sure that most of my subscribers, they are reading my stories, my Sky stories on the Live Journal or on the Yandex.Zen. So if you still didn't read my stories, you have a good chance to start doing this. Dear Denis, what classic books do you like? Do you read Gogol, Dostoevsky, Shmelev? Who are that guys, by the way? Oh, of course I know who is Gogol, who is Dostoevsky, but I don't know who is Shmelev. Really, honestly, maybe it's not good for me. Sorry for that. Sorry for saying that, but I don't like to read classic. I enjoy reading the sci-fi books, adventure books, some books about aviation, of course. So in my Russian streams, I frequently mention Mark Galay, my favorite author, who was a test pilot, very remarkable test pilot, by the way. And nowadays, what I normally read is book about fantastics, different, I would say, different genres. So, but Gogol, Dostoevsky, Lev Tolstoy, no, not for me. Alexei Tikhonov, thank you very much for your support in my very first performance in English. Comrades, let's leave comments in English. By the way, you may leave comments in Russian. For me, it's not a big problem. As for me, what I am doing, I'm gaining the experience. So this is good for me because, you know, even when you talk in Russian, it's not very easy as it might have, as you might see from this side of the screen, from that side of the screen, even in Russian. So when I speak in English, this is a very different story. Finally in English. Yes, brother, where is your question? Novosibirsk, hello. Do you have understanding about your future in your company at this moment? That's a very good question, by the way. No, unfortunately, so far we don't have any news. We don't have any ideas what to expect. So nobody tells anything, you know. So, but as for that moment, the situation is not bad. I mean, we are living day to day, from day to another day, week to week. We still get the same salary, so there is no decrement in salary. Of course, if you're not talking about payment for the flying hours, because we are not flying, but the basement salary, the basic salary is the same. So how it will go after that, I do not know. Of course, I would like to stay here for several years. So it's a very nice place to live. It's a very nice place to work, but who knows? I don't see any point in this. Why do ATC use meters and QFE below at initial level? No, I honestly don't know why, because most of the aircraft nowadays, they are Western ones, and that aircraft, which are, I mean, Soviet aircraft or Russian aircraft, like a superjet, they can easily fly QNH and fit. I don't know what's the necessity to use QFE and meters. So, and I think even if I ask the guys in the Russian aviation authorities, they will not give me a good answer. No. For me, it's really stupid. How is flight there because of COVID-19? There is no flights. There are no flights here. Just eventual flights according to government needs. So they are doing certain number of flights to Hasa 3 times per week, which is a Cat C airport, by the way. And sometimes they do flights to China. I mean, to carry some goods, some cargo, some food. Recently, they flew to Britain, but this is just for repatriants, so it's not a normal passenger flight. Almost all foreigners are here with Russian names. No problem. As I have said, this is I'm doing this stream firstly for myself, just to feel confidence. If I continue doing the streams in English, at least I will know that I can do it. You notice that we have less idiotic questions. Nice idea to use English. Perfect. There is some pilots in Europe don't use English. I have experience in Italy when pilots in ground service know only Italian. This is not prohibited, by the way. According to the Annex 1, the language which is to be used for the communication must be well known by both sides. I mean, by the controller and by the pilot. So in Italy, you may use Italian language or English language. In Russia, you can use either Russian language or English language. And the English language is international. And the requirement is level 4, as far as you know. By the way, who is here for the first time? If you hear some crying sounds from other side, from that side, this is my 2-year-old baby. He is going to sleep, and sometimes he becomes really angry when he cannot come to this room to see his father. I mean me. How was the landing in Trivandrum, Thiruvananthapuram? How can you please share your experiences here? Trivandrum, for me, it's an airport, one of these remarkable or notable airports, because the very first simulator session here, once I joined the airline, the very first simulator training was carried in Trivandrum. I mean, it was carried here in Muscat, but the training program, the airport we used for training was Trivandrum. And I opened my iPad, I opened my Jepson charts, and I saw the name of the airport, Thiruvananthapuram. I said, Thira what? And the instructor said, Denis, relax, that's why we call it Trivandrum. Just Trivandrum. It's a very nice place. By the way, this southern part of India is really nice. Being an artist myself. Honestly, I like to do videos, as you might notice. I like to take pictures, and Trivandrum is one of the nicest places I ever flew to, and I think it's really well seen in my couple of videos from Trivandrum. So flying is also always amazing. A lot of green colors. There is a sea from that side, I mean ocean from that side, grass from that side. There are some clouds, there are some mountains, there was a sunrise, so it's very enjoyable. Almost the same situation like in airspace. Not only Russian, but all subscribers are able to understand what's going on. Would be great to stream jointly with the pilot Patrick or Captain Joe. Honestly, I don't know who is pilot Patrick, but I know who is Captain Joe. I didn't think about it, honestly. Is there any existing NADPs for arrival aircraft, or the procedures are aimed for departures only? Yes. What is acronym NADP? This means noise abatement departure procedure. So NADP, yes, it's only for departures, but there are also procedures for reducing noise for arrivals. Let's say we can use higher angle of descent, and I think one of the problems why London City uses this steep descent, and in my humble opinion, this is because they want to reduce noise. Maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, but I think so. And also we normally use higher flaps settings, so if there are some noise abatement restrictions, so we will use flaps 30 if you're not limited with the performance, because it requires less thrust, and less thrust means less noise. That's it. And the arrival procedures for certain crowded places like big cities, so they are constructed that way, that to avoid these regions with high population. And some countries like Germany, they restrict flying to daytime only. So 10 p.m. or 11 p.m., I don't remember exactly. Halas, all airports in Germany are closed for passenger flights. Ekaterina Makarevich, very nice to see you. It's very interesting and informative as usual. Thanks for the stream. Happy Victory Day. The same to you. Can you repeat the first part somehow in the Russian stream? Alright, I will do it. Denis, I know that you have already told and wrote about it in Russian, but I think it can be interesting to international visitors. Tell about your opinion about Superjet in comparison to Boeing 737. Just give me a chance to go through the comments. Denis, so you'd like to create your own airlines and invest your managerial experience into them? Yes, if I would have get a lot of money, yes, maybe this will be a good startup, because I already got a very nice team of professionals, so maybe it will be a nice idea. But you know, this is something from it's unbelievable area, I think so. It will not happen tomorrow, in a year, in 10 years, but if there is a chance, let's say, why not? How do you know what flaps to choose and when to open them? Good questions again. Thank you. How are you managing life balance as a pilot? Can you share your experience? All right. So about 737 and a Superjet. For my foreign subscribers, you might have known that my country, they have their own aviation industry, and the most recent project which already flies is the Superjet, Russian Regional Jet 95, RRG 95, or a Superjet. It's an aircraft like Embraer 195. I think it's almost that size. This is an aircraft of generation 4, which means this aircraft is equipped with a fly-by-wire system, and it works almost the same way it works on Airbus fleet. I mean Airbus 320, 330 and others. So the aircraft is equipped with the side sticks, and it has got a lot of protection modes, and I think, as far as I know, the Superjet has even more protection modes than the Airbus 320. So in this particular area, it's a little bit more modern. But if we, who was it, by the way? I forgot. Rivasi, he wanted me to compare 737 and Superjet. It's very difficult to compare that aircraft because the Superjet is a small aircraft, a small regional jet, and the 737 is quite a big one. It's almost the same if you compare 737 with the Airbus 350, for example. So, but if you compare the control system, of course, the Superjet is much more easier to fly because the computer always fly for you, like on Airbus. You just tell the computer which pitch you want to fly, which bank you want to use. You set the pitch, you set the bank, you set the side stick to a neutral position, and the aircraft flies for you. The auto throttle is switched on for the whole duration of the flight. On the 737, as you might know, we need to disconnect the auto throttle for landing. Once we disconnected the autopilot, we need to disconnect the auto throttle also. And on our aircraft, we have to control the aircraft when the air is bumpy, when there's a wind shear, whatever, turbulence. The flying on the 737 is really tricky because, you know, the computer doesn't help you. The computer doesn't maintain pitches, banks, or whatever. So you need to keep your path by yourself, like old school pilots on DS3, Tupolev 134, and others. But in means of flying, it's really enjoying to fly the 737 because you feel like a pilot, old style pilot. And at the same time, you have got a lot of nice automation features, the same flight directors, the flight path vector, the trend vector, in the speed trend vector. You have all these protections for the low speed limit, for the high speed limit, for the slow warning system, stall protection, blah blah blah. So we have a lot of protections, but we still have a conventional aircraft. The Superjet. I've got experience of flying a Superjet on the simulator, and it flies very nicely. What's the difference between an Airbus and Superjet? On Airbus, at a certain height, I don't know exactly, but I think it's like 200 feet, it goes from normal low to something like a direct low. So you fly the aircraft like a 737. So below a certain height during approach, you need to keep the bank, you need to control the pitch until touchdown. But on the Superjet, the computer helps you until touchdown, and on the simulator, the flying is really easy. Of course, the test pilots with whom I used to fly, they say that a real aircraft flies the same, so it's very easy to fly. So in means of flying, I really enjoyed flying the Superjet simulator. So now I'm really interested in another Russian project, MS-21, and I wish I will get a chance to visit a simulator also. And there is a very nice feature installed, which name is active side sticks, which means they are synchronized. So, you know, on Airbus, on Superjet, the sticks, if let's say the captain is moving the stick, the first officer sticks will not move. And if captain, let's say, pulls the stick full back and the first officer pushes his stick full forward, the aircraft will not change the pitch. But on MS-21, they are synchronized like yokes on the 737. So in means of pilot training, I think this is better for the instructors, because I really respect the instructor's job on Airbus. I don't know how they teach cadet pilots to fly this aircraft, because if they want to correct the deviation and they forget to press this priority button, they will get this dual input warning, and this will be a case for investigation later on, so they will be called to the office. On the 737, for me, the fly with the trainee, it's really easy. If I want to correct the flight path, I just take controls or maybe make a small input. On an Airbus, if you want to make a small input, you need to press the priority button. So you need to do little bit more steps. Have you ever been at E&E Bay of 7.3? Yes, of course, for sure. If you have for work purpose, sometimes you need to recycle to reset your reverse deployment system, stowing system. Sometimes you get the reverser light still illuminating after you have stowed your reverser. I don't know how it goes, I don't know how mechanically it works, but sometimes you have your reverser sleeves stowed, but you see the reverser light still illuminates on the overhead panel. So you need to do the procedure. Currently I don't remember what to do because the last time I've done this procedure was maybe 3 years ago. But you need to go downstairs, go outside, open this E&D compartment door, press whatever button there, and after that the system will be reset. Thank you for broadcasting English. I'm doing my best, honestly. Do you have any rough idea of how many nationalities you flew with? I never calculated, I never counted. I know that here in my airline we have more than 60 nationalities working on different positions. So I flew with guys from many countries, from Europe, from both America, Southern America, Northern America, North America, guys from New Zealand, guys from India, of course, Sri Lanka. We have a lot of Malaysian guys, Russian, Ukrainian. So it's really nice to fly with different people from different countries. When I go down to the end of comments, the YouTube chat works crazily. What do you how do you think what do you think about Airbus 220, which is a former C300 Bombardier? I really like the pictures or the videos taken on the flight deck of this aircraft. This aircraft looks to be really modern, but I don't know anything. I know nothing about the systems of this aircraft, and I only look at the pictures, and the pictures are really nice. Aviation is really conservative. If you look at the 737 MAX flight deck, you can say, oh, this aircraft has nice big displays, but that's it. There's just big displays, nothing there. So there is no revolution in comparison with the 737 NG, just another bigger displays. You might have noticed there are two big screens, two primary flight displays for the captain's side and the first officer's side, and there is a big blank area on the left and on the right, and this is really blank. This is empty. There is no information there. I don't know why do they use such big displays. They don't put any information here. Charts, ecom or whatever. There is no ecom, by the way, on the 737 MAX. The captain begins to look tired not earlier than after 5 hours of performance. How you're managing life balance as a pilot? Can you share your experience? That's a good question again, because if you have a lot of flights, especially if you have a lot of night flyings, like you start flying in the evening, come back in the middle of night, and you have the same flight the next day, and next day you have a very late departure at midnight, you come back at midday, and the same continues on the next day. So after 4 nights in a row you feel really tired. So you need to be prepared, but as I understand now, this is like a matter of how you are used for it. Because maybe for the first month, for 2 months, it's really difficult. But once you get into this loop, and of course it's not happening every week. So you can work, let's say 1 week you're doing this evening and night flights, then you have 2 or 3 days off, so you have time to recover. and you have a week when you fly morning flights, day flights, then you have another 1 day or 2 days off. So when you have the same this schedule, so when you do it from so 1 month, second month, third month, you get used to it. And at the same time, if you talk about living here in Oman, so you have an ocean here, you have a nice beach, so you can go out, relax, you can go to mountains, so you have a chance to find something for relaxation. And at the same time, a big dependency is on how the management works with you. So I mean, how big is the pressure which you experience from flying. So as if you talk about my airline, thanks to the management, this is the best airline to work for, because we have a very good level of management, and at the same time it's not, let's say, too much relaxed. So we have rules, we need to follow the rules, and if you're following the rules, you're not having problems. In comparison with my previous airline, the flying was more difficult because the weather normally is more complicated than here. A lot of thunderstorms, winds, wind shears. During winter time, you have slippery runways, whatever. You have short runways, which are at the same time slippery. You have a lot of cadet pilots on the right side. So the flying was really tricky, and the requirements were a little bit more strict, let's say. And the reason for being called to the office were much smaller. So every small deviation, not very small, but some deviation which can be normal, but still it goes to left or right side from the center of normality, you can be called to the office for giving the description why this happened. And even if they don't tell you anything, if they tell you nothing, you feel that you are under pressure. So you don't want this to repeat again. So nobody wants to be called at the office. So here, so of course you have, let's say, something like a road. So if you are here on the center, it's okay. If you deviate left or right, but you're still within the boundaries, it's okay. If you go out of the boundary, there's still a margin that you can use for returning back. Of course, it depends on the deviation. But if you deviate, and if you deviate it intentionally, be sure they call you to the office, give you an advice letter or a warning letter, and you'll be fired if you continue doing this. But this happens very rarely. You need to be an idiot to violate. I was talking too much, I think, but the answer is, even if you have a tough schedule, you have a good resources to get rest, and you don't once you don't have big pressure from the top, let's say, your fatigue doesn't grow up very quickly. Okay, so there is a question about which school my kids are going to. There are a lot of international schools here, as long as Oman is an international country. I mean, there are Omanis and the native nation, and there are a lot of expatriates. I think more than half of population are expatriates. So there are a lot of international schools, and my kids, they're going to one of them. This is a British school. How difficult is to control the plane alone if the second pilot feels bad and cannot make any assistance? What's your opinion? Can you land 737 alone in direct mode? The 737 always flies in direct mode, by the way. And we do not fly the aircraft using 4 hands. So it's not a big problem to land the aircraft alone. I did it a lot of times because, you remember, I'm an instructor. When they give you a guy for whom this is a very first flight on the 737, he normally gets lost. So you need to train him. You need to tell him all the things. You need to teach him. You need to listen to the ATC. You need to fly the aircraft. You need to correct his mistakes. So you're flying the aircraft in a single pilot mode for the first 2, 3, 5 legs. After a while, your trainee starts to understand the place in the aircraft, so he starts to help you. So this is our job, by the way. But For a modern aircraft, even for the Tupolev 154, it's not a big deal to fly the aircraft alone. Of course, if you're not doing the descent, because in Tupolev 154, this is a flight engineer who controls the air conditioning pressurization system. But in means of flying the aircraft, you can easily control this, the Tupolev 154 like a single pilot. And as for 737, as for 747, whatever 77, whatever Airbus, you can easily fly these aircraft alone. Steering wheel or side stick? Steering wheel. You mean what is better, a yoke or a side stick? Of course, side stick is better. Side stick is much more easier to fly. I mean the side stick and the control laws which are used in Airbus and Superjet. When the computer helps you maintaining pitch and bank angles, it's very easy to fly aircraft. Is there a chance for low-hour pilots? I mean you mean the pilots with small experience, yes, with 250 hours to be taken seriously after the pandemic is gone and the aviation industry will get back to normal? Nobody knows how quick the aviation will get back to normal, but I think it will not be very quick, by the way. It can take a year, a couple of years, maybe 3 years. Nobody knows now. So it depends mostly on how fast, how quick they prepare the vaccine and how quick the vaccination of people will be done. Of course, this is not very difficult to understand that as long as a lot of pilots nowadays, they are starting to lose their jobs. So once the industry starts to recover, the experienced pilot will be hired firstly. So there will be not a big requirement on non-experienced pilots. This is the sad economic truth. But who knows what will happen in 5 years? Maybe in 5 years there'll be a rapid grow up. So nobody can say that in 5 years low experienced pilot they will not be needed. Or who knows, maybe there will be another crisis of a different type, of a different kind, and aviation will just stop at work at all. Nobody knows this. What would you change first in Russian federal aviation rules if you had a chance to? It's a very difficult question for me. I never thought about this. How difficult is it to pass the screening at Emirates? If you are well prepared for the interview, if you know, because normally they ask standard questions, but you need to prepare. You need to be very confident with your answers, because how these screenings are conducted, they try to push you from your comfort area. They try to see how you work under pressure. So if you didn't prepare for their questions, and questions can be really stupid, sorry for saying this, or the questions are really unexpected, so you will get lost, you will get confused, so you will forget the English language and they will not hire you. And of course the interview is not the only process which is used for Emirates screening or for other airlines screening also. There are several steps, which every step can be difficult for this or that person. Let's say there's a certain set of psychological tests, psychometric tests. I forgot this word in English, but again, this is a test, a compass test. It's an ATPL, something like a TPL test, which is not very difficult, by the way. There are CRM group training. There is an interview with the psychologist after you passed all these psychological, psychometric tests. And every step is not very easy, by the way, but you need to prepare. There is a very good site, latestpilotjobs.com, in which you can find a lot of useful information for Emirates and for a lot of other airlines. I think Denis is having fun on this English-Russian show. Yes, for me it's like a fun. Oh, I forgot that I have this donation alert, so I need to check the donation alerts. Maybe I've got questions there. Normally I use Yandex Donate, and it shows directly whether you got a message or by email, but in donation alerts you need to go straight forward there. Oh, Andron, I see you. Thank you very much. Happy Victory Day. There was a question. What do I think about when the aviation will start to recover? It's very difficult to say. I try to monitor the aviation news. I got some optimistic news from Europe saying that in Cyprus they want to start flying at the end of this month. I've read something like the Turkish, they want to start the tourist season in August. That I think it was Germany, yes, they want to continue flying or to start flying. Czech Republic, they also think about continuation of flights or start flying. As for this region, so far they have no idea when we continue operations. So nobody says anything. Is there any difference between words крайний and последний in English we have in Russia? No, I have never met with any difference there. Крайний. How it is in English? No, I don't know. Recent. What turboprop is the best in your opinion? Honestly, I'm not a specialist in turboprops. I just know that there are some turboprops like old style Antonov 24, 26, ATR 42, Dash 8, and that's it. The only thing which I know is names. Greetings from Baikal. Hello. Do you know foreign pilots flying in Russian airlines? I know that there is a certain number of foreigners flying for Aeroflot, but personally don't know any of them. Чувак. There is a claim that I'm conducting stream in English from Жук. I will read it in Russian. С арабами не наговорились на ангельском. Человек, получающий миллионы, просит донаты на брошюрку. Хохол в вас преобладает. Извините. Такой ник еще прикольный, Жук. Denis, recently Alexei Kachemazov said that Tupolev 154 would decelerate on runway better than Boeing 737 because of larger amount of the wheels. What do you think? I've got the same question yesterday during my Russian stream. I said, if you want to get numbers, we need to compare the numbers from the official tables. So I don't have the tables for Tupolev 154. I need to surf the internet. But for me, it's an interesting question also. But I'm not sure that Alexei is right until I see the numbers. As from my it's from my feelings, I don't think so, honestly. I think that the 737 has better characteristics than Tupolev 154. First of all, it is a light aircraft. Tupolev 154 is a heavy aircraft. But let's compare. Let's get the tables and compare, firstly. Which mobile phone do you have? This is Sony Xperia 5. I'm a fan of Sony. I have got a lot of devices from Sony. This is Sony RX0 Mark II. This is Sony RX100 Mark VI. I got Sony HDR IS300 and a lot of Sony smartphones in the past. So I'm a fan of Sony. ATR 42600 Sierra is the best turboprop. Cheers. Oh. Denis, how do you plan descent when you expect that you might be given a shortcut on a star so that you don't find yourself too high on a profile with speeds too high to start extending flaps? This is like a magic. If you, let's talk about Moscow, Domodedovo. When you are going to land, do carry out a straighten approach when you arrive from the south and you're expecting runway 3 to left for landing. You can expect a shortcut from the controller, and sometimes, by the way, I have already talked about this in the Russian stream. Sometimes, because of the aircraft ahead of you, the controller stops your descent at a rather comparatively high altitude, and you see that you're a little bit higher on profile and you're not descending, you're higher, going higher, going higher. So what can I do from my side is to decelerate to the flaps up speed. Then if you see that you are still too high, and even if you start increasing the speed, trading the speed for the vertical speed, trying to catch up the profile. So if it is risky, of course you have the flaps, so you can start configuring, like, let's say 5,000 feet or 6,000 feet. You can extend the flaps, so this will help you. You can reduce the speed further. This increases the drag, so if you use the gear, so it can increase the drag also. But at a certain moment, it's better to ask for an orbit, let's say, or for vectors, because it will be risky if you start descending at 3,000 feet per minute. So you need to think, you need to expect, but this comes with the experience. Once you get this experience, any other airport you fly to is almost the same, because you always know how long is the distance from the threshold. And some airports, let's say in Dubai, the controller, when he starts vectoring you, he says fly heading, for instance, 280, expect 35 track miles. So this means that you are 35 miles from the touchdown, not directly, but this curvy. The curvy track is 35 miles. So if you are, let's say, at 11,000 feet, you are okay. If you're at 15,000 feet, no, you need to do something, either to start extending the flaps now, to increasing the drag, or if you consider this will be risky, so this can lead to an unstabilized approach, you will better ask for extending vectors or to make an orbit. Are you using auto brake maximum on approach? Not very often, so because maximum is really a very high auto brake setting, so we use maximum when the runway is limited, or when the runway is slippery, or in certain airports like Kathmandu when we experienced a strong tailwind. Even though the calculations say that we can use auto brake 3, or sometimes we can use even auto brake 2, in certain conditions, just maybe for your own comfort, it would be better to use the higher auto brake, even high as maximum. What is high altitude cruise icing? It's a comparatively new phenomena, so an aircraft can experience ice crystal icings when flying over well-developed cells with high humidity there, and at the same time this humidity with the streams of air, it can reach your aircraft even if you're higher than the cell. So I do not know the physics of the process, because I have to read the books, by the way, but the outcome is that the way how the aircraft gets iced is different from normal icing. So using their normal anti-ice system normally doesn't help you, and icing increases quite rapidly, and this can be really dangerous. So the industry started to talk a lot about crystal ice icing after a 747 Air Beach cargo experienced a 2-engine loss in one of the flights. So they entered the area of crystal ice icing, and in a while they lost 2 engines. So on a 747, just half of engines, but just imagine we are flying a 737, we have only 2. Is it difficult for your children to study at foreign school, at English British school? Not, I cannot say this because the program is aimed at students for whom the language is not native. So, and the way the teaching style is really friendly, and the hospitality is very good, really high. So they don't feel discomfort. So they quickly started to be engaged in the school activities. So they start to, let's say, make friends with different students from different countries. So when you are put into a situation in which you use English, you are forced to use English. So once you start doing this, so your comfort zone expands. So this day, let's say you're feeling unconfident, so you're mostly listening. So next day you're a little bit more confident. In a week you are much more confident. So you're starting to ask questions. You're starting to talk. You use new words, new simple phrases. In a month you're a different man. So you're much more active than you were before. So day by day, month by month, year by year. So by the way, this is their third year in the school. So when I see my kid, he is easily talking English with Arab kids, with European kids, whatever kids. So my heart really warms up. How difficult is it to maintain the straight run of the aircraft on the ground? It's not really difficult. Of course, it depends on what the winds are. I mean, strong crosswinds, gusty crosswinds, and the state of runway. If the runway is slippery, so yes, this might cause some problems. And if you talk about the 737, so this aircraft is really good in maintaining the runway track, the runway heading. So I used to land the aircraft on a very slippery runways, and I didn't experience really big problems. As for Tupolev 154, it's a little bit different. It is more tricky to handle the aircraft on the ground. So the controllability is not that sharp as the 737. But it's not, as I have started saying that it's not very difficult, yes, no. So the experience is gained very quickly. Could you comment on Southwest 737 accident? Recently, there was a report about a stranger on the runway which was killed by a landing in the 737 aircraft. So they hit a man with the engine. Of course, it was sudden death, and it's still under investigation. So I don't know the news. I don't know the reasons. Nobody knows whom this guy was. Maybe he was a spotter. There were, these black jokes that, all right, so Southwest 737 minus one spotter. So, but nobody knows what this man was doing on the runway. So I cannot comment as long as I don't know who was that guy. I don't know the reasons why this guy entered the runway and how that had happened. But this can be really dangerous, especially if the aircraft takes off. Does the surface of runways, asphalt, concrete, and so on, makes any influence in landing? As from my experience, I used to fly a lot on concrete runways, and these runways, I mean, I'm talking about Russian concrete runways, and they were really bumpy. These were old runways in northern areas, because when there is a season change, when the temperature changes greatly from winter temperatures to summer temperatures, so the soil moves, and this causes the concrete lists to move also, the concrete blocks to move also. So this causes bumps. So these concrete runways, which are built by blocks of concrete blocks, they can be really bumpy. As for asphalt, nothing special, I cannot remember. Some kind of dissonance. A person has donated you, but with the hater BS. Do you often come? Till which age can I become a pilot? Thanks for answer. So normally the upper limit of being a pilot is from 60 to 65 years old. But I think if you start your flying career as a commercial pilot at the age of 60, you will have a very small chance to get hired. As for 30s or 40s, it depends on the situation, depends on the market requirements, on the market demands. I know guys who started their careers at early 30s, and so now they are flying as flight instructors. So they used their chances, but the situation was different. So at that time, I'm talking about 10 years ago, the situation, the industry was growing up. So the demand for pilots was rising from year to year. So far, you see the situation is quite different. They have got a lot of pilots out of the industry loop. So once the situation recovers, as we have talked already, so I think that the experienced pilots, they will get hired firstly. Stream in English is going great. Thanks a lot. Would you like to work for an American airline and live in the USA? No, I think no. I enjoyed my training in the USA, but it was 15 years ago, by the way. Honestly, I would better live and work in Russia. When I made this decision to change the airline, this was not because I feel really badly in my country. You know, I wanted to get more experience. I wanted to prove my ideas of, let's say, flight training, of the CRM, and as I have said, for me it was a big challenge to try myself flying with different people from different countries. Can I work with them? Can I communicate with them? Can I just say pass the screening? Can I become an instructor in an international airline? I wanted to get some experience, and I wanted to use this experience later in one of the Russian airlines. So I still believe, I still hope that my experience will be required later here, because I'm a patriot also. А разве по-английски асфальт так и будет? Да, это не русское слово. Tell us, please, about sandstorm procedures. This is a supplementary procedures if you're talking about the 737. And by the way, when I started flying the 737, there was no procedures at all in the FCOM. And the procedure appeared, I think, maybe 5 years ago only. So the procedure, saying in a few words, is quite simple. Try to reduce the time when you're using the APU, try to cover all these probe heats, ports, engines, the APU inlets. So open them before engine starts. So try to use reduced thrust as long as possible as practical for taxiing. That's it. This is the procedure we used to fly when we experience a dust or a sandstorm. But actually, I've been here for 3 years. I've never seen a sandstorm. And today's morning, I've got news from Saudi Arabia, so that one of the parts of this country is experiencing a sandstorm. It's really crazy. But here in Oman, it happens very, very rarely. London is a capital of Great Britain. Really, a capital? If there will be more donations in English, will transfers in Russian be less frequent? Maybe not transfers, but streams. I found for the last couple of Russian streams, I found that other guys are found, they already sent me their messages that the questions are the same. Every stream I'm getting the same questions about big jets, about this super jet, about this blah blah blah. So the questions are not as interesting as they were at the very beginning when I started streaming at the beginning of March. So I discussed this problem with the guys who are frequently visiting my streams, and maybe the decision will be to reduce the amount of streamings, maybe. And so far I'm doing one stream per week, so maybe it will be like one stream per 2 weeks, or maybe one stream per month. But it doesn't depend on me. So far, you see, I have much time to carry out streams. But if it continues this way, I see that every stream I have less viewers, because I'm talking about the same. What's the interest to watch my face every Friday if I answer the same questions? So that's why I'm asking you guys, please give me your questions. What is really interesting for you? And even when I ask this, I'm getting the same questions. So, do Russian pilots usually drink vodka during the flights? Dr. Hawkins is asking. Somebody I saw said that there are no stupid, idiotic questions today. This is one of the idiot questions from an idiot. Sorry for saying this, but this is the truth. Do you use a single engine taxi procedure in airline? We use single taxi in procedure. In the past, there was a period we were using a single engine taxi out procedure. It's really quick on the 737, as the aircraft is quite heavy, and it's not very easy, especially when you experience hot temperatures outside. But as for the taxi in, it's not a big issue at all. Hello Denis, do you have a trick how to calculate holding entry procedures, offset direct teardrop when you are flying as cadet and given certain holding course and you know your current headings? Normally, if you don't have the FMC but you have an HSI, so if you have a heading bug, which you can select the inbound track, so you will get a needle of a desired inbound track. So you see your actual track is like this. So you start thinking which side I'm coming from. Is it the first or second or the third one? So you fly directly to the navigation aid, so you have already detected which area you're coming from. So this is either direct entry, offset entry, or parallel entry. So then you do the procedure. So if, let's say, this is a outbound track, so this is an offset procedure, for instance, so you know that you need to turn normally left 30 degrees, fly for 1 minute, then turn right with bank 25 or whatever, depending on the wings. Then you go inbound, and once you are aligned with the inbound track, life becomes very, very easy. So use your HSI, use this heading bug needle just to imagine where are you coming from, and that's it. There's nothing special at all. Does any crew member pray in a long flight? Yes, why not? I think you need to create a list of questions that you are tired of answering. You know that at every stream, for every stream, I put certain number of already asked questions in the description of the stream. But anyway, nobody reads description. What is the Russian word for airplane? It sounds like самолет. This means that this is a device which flies itself. ATR, so you see the guys pilot block, they are talking about flying ATR 72600. That's a very good question. Which flight level do you fly when you're going straight north, south, even or odd? Oh, I need to refresh my knowledge because these headings are also included in the leveling system, in the direction system. But I'm trying to, so far I'm trying to remember the 360 degrees or 000 degrees, which side it is included to. So I need to refresh it. It's a good question, by the way. But normally we don't think about this. We just get the assigned flight level from the ATC and use this flight level for the flight. That's it. So when you become an airline pilot, the life becomes much more easier than when you are a cadet pilot. YT, what airport is your favorite? No, by the way, it's not the favorite. I mean, it's not the single favorite airport, but this is one of my favorite destinations. I enjoy flying to nice places, and Tivat is a really nice place. I mean, in means of sightseeing. So the views over there are really, really great, really fantastic. There is a sea water here of different color, especially during evening time or morning time. There is mountains. You come from Podgorica. Podgorica is really nice again. There is a lake there which reflects the sky, which reflects the clouds or the view. So you don't think about flying, you're just watching outside, you're enjoying the sightseeing. And the approach is, this airport has that kind of approach which is really interesting to fly. When the weather is nice, you can feel like a pilot flying this type of approach. This is not a straight-in approach, so this is an approach with, let me remember, I think it's 20 degrees offset. I mean, there is a 20 degrees of a heading change at a comparatively low height of 500 feet, so you need to know how to fly the aircraft. And at the same time, as I have said, you fly and you see the mountains. There is a mountain on the right side, Chernogora, how it is in your language. There is a mountain, a smaller mountain on your left side. There is a runway. Then you see there is a bay over there. Then the high mountains over there again. So the view is fantastic. But when the weather is challenging, no, that's a very different story. So when the weather is bad, I mean the thunderstorms, or as you might see in my video, there was no thunderstorms at all, but the winds were unstable. I mean the air was unstable, which happens quite often over there. So the approach can become really difficult. And when there is a thunderstorm nearby, it's really risky to even to try to attempt to land at this airport. Because when the airport is surrounded by mountains, the way how the air changes, I mean the wind drafts, the wind shears, it cannot be predicted. And we got a couple of incidents in my previous airline, I mean overspeed incidents, when they attempted to land with a thunderstorm, not at the airport, not over the airfield, but somewhere nearby. The winds were rotating around the aircraft, causing the speed go up and down, go up and down. There was turbulence, really crazy turbulence, so the overspeed. So both times they did a go around and they diverted to Podgorica. In some airlines, this airport is considered to be a category C airport, which means this airport requires additional training prior to the first flight of the captain to this airport. And some airlines require even simulated training, like we train for Kathmandu, which is a very challenging airport also. Have you ever used the RTO mode of brakes? No. The RTO motor brakes is used for rejecting the takeoff at higher speeds. It starts working automatically at speeds more than 90 knots on the 737. There was only one case I had to reject the takeoff and the speed was comparatively low. It was like 60 knots, not more, not higher. So I used to brake manually. But from the guys who had a chance to experience the RTO on a dry runway, they say that the airplane, the deceleration rate is really crazy. So because RTO, this is a mode when the full pressure goes to the brakes. This means that you gain the maximum available braking. And if this is a dry runway, so that braking is really crazy. Is there any airport in Indonesia you have flown to so far? No, unfortunately no. But one of my favorite videos here on YouTube is this National Geographic movie. 1, 2, 3, I think it was 4 episodes. The worst place to be a pilot, about flying for the Suzy Airlines. Like one of my friends, he used to say, if I would have another life, I would be a pilot for Suzy Airlines, because flying in the mountains in Indonesia is something like which you never experience flying a 737. You fly a small aircraft like a Piper, like a Cessna Caravan. They used to land at runways. These are not runways. It's just a part of cleared surface, and that's it. So it can be like this. I mean, the bumpy, short, dirty, and it's really tricky to fly. It's really difficult to fly, and it's really dangerous to fly because every airport is of category not C, even D. It means that the difficulty of the airports there in Papua is really high. But from the other side, as I have said, the sightseeing, the view, the sightseeing of mountains. The mountains are very green, clouds, sunrises, sunsets, the skies. I mean, the flying again, because all these aircraft, they used to be flown manually. The experience again, I mean, you feel like a pilot. If you haven't seen these episodes, just search in the YouTube, the worst place to be a pilot. Don't concentrate on the worst place. Actually, you will enjoy this place. It's really nice. What key criteria should be sought by a pilot when choosing an airline, if there is a choice? That's a very good question. From my point of view nowadays, when I've got some experience of flying, I would select an airline which has a proven high safety culture. Even if the salary is lower, I would select this airline. You know, today I enjoyed watching a movie, Whiskey Romeo Zulu. This is a movie which was directed by a former Boeing 737 pilot who played the main role in this movie. The movie is about a low-cost airline of Argentina, Lapa Airways, which was growing up rapidly, and they didn't fund technical issues of the aircraft, so they closed eyes on a lot of problems with airplanes, so the safety culture was low. And at the end, on the 31st of August 1999, they finally got an accident with a 737, so everyone was killed. So they took off without the flaps because the pilots, they ignored the warning, because they used to fly with false alerts, false warnings. So they use not to write down the findings in the tech log. So the culture was really low. So finally, they ignored the warning that the flaps, they didn't select the flaps, and the airplane stalled and crashed just after takeoff. And this movie, it's really hit my heart. I was greatly impressed because this movie, the way how he shot this movie, the dialogues, this is the truth. This is the truth of aviation. Because in my past, I used to fly. I used to fly in let's say certain situations, but the whole picture was not so ugly as the picture of the Slapa Airways. But some kinds of moments, you know, that's the same words I used to hear in Russia, I heard in this video from Argentina. It's absolutely the same. These are Spanish words translated to Russian, but they are absolutely the same words which I heard in my country many years ago. I was watching this movie like, you know, with big eyes. So this is the best movie. That's the best movie for the CRM training for the pilot managers, for the flight managers. And then once I stopped watching the movie at the end, I sent pictures, I sent messages to my friends from my former airline saying that before sitting in a manager seat, these guys, they need to watch this movie, because this is something which is a must for every manager of an airline. But at the same moment, I think that every pilot, he needs to watch this movie. So Whiskey Romeo Zulu, the best aviation movie ever. You know, the 737NG is the most safe airplane. Yes, I know this, according to the safety statistic published by Boeing, by the way. Yes, there's this safety statistics, I think the latest update was 2017, says that yes, the 737NG is more safe than Airbus 320. But let's wait for the latest revision, because several incidents and accidents happened from that after that period. What is right, Jepson or Jepson? I think Jepson is right, with two P's. There are two pedestrian cross in the beginning and in the end of runway. Why they are needed? This is just to mark that this is a lineup position of active runway. But maybe this guy who was killed by the airplane, maybe he saw this pedestrian cross, these pedestrian strips. Maybe, who knows? No, I think this would be a silly joke if you start joking about this situation. Dennis, do you take a private class on plane Cork? This is Yamaha, by the way. No, I don't. I didn't take any private classes. As I have said on my Russian streams, I used to teach myself how to play this piano. So what's the time now to one? So we are here for 1 hour 40 minutes. Not bad. We have 140 viewers at the moment. Hi Dennis. Hello Gina. Do you think it's a good idea to start doing my PPL license now in order to become an airline pilot in future, considering current situation? Do you think there will be need for the new pilots? I think we have already talked about this today, but I will say it again, that nobody knows what to expect in the future. I mean, the future, like 2 years or 3 years from now. As for the short period of time, yes, of course, definitely there will be no requirement for pilots in the upcoming year or maybe a couple of years, because you might have heard companies, they start to get rid of big jets like Airbus 380s, Boeing 747s. A lot of airlines, they have also grounded 777 fleet. Just a few aircraft are flying nowadays, and all this means that pilots are grounded also. I mean, experienced pilots are grounded also. I cannot say you don't start your pilot training or start your pilot training now, because I'm not that man who can give such kind of advice, because it should be your decision. As from my side, when I came to a decision to become a pilot, the situation was much worse. In my country, for several years in a row, pilots were fired. I mean, the pilots were losing their jobs in 90s, and there was no light at the end of the tunnel in 1996 when I started my pilot training at the Buguruslan Flight School. But anyway, somehow in 5 years after I got my very first pilot license, I was hired by one of the airlines, and after that, the situation in aviation changed, and there was a big requirement for pilots. New aircraft came to my country, a lot of airlines appeared, there was a huge demand for pilots, the salaries increased. But before that, I spent 5 years and I was working different kind of jobs just to do something, to earn some money. Please comment on the recently adopted concept of universal robotics of transport, which was signed by the president of Russia. I don't know what you're talking about. I haven't heard anything regarding this, so I cannot comment this. Do you enjoy your stream? Yes, I am enjoying my stream experiment. I think I need to repeat later on. All right, so gentlemen, let's be together for another 18 minutes. So if you get any questions, I'll be really happy to try to answer them. Почему тут одни америкосы? Do you miss the birch trees at your resort? Maybe sometimes. Is the door, I mean the cockpit, you mean the cockpit's door is armored or not in a 737? Is it capable to stop bullets from the bad guy in passenger saloon? Yes, of course, for sure. This is a requirement, by the way. Are there moments during the flight when it becomes boring? Yes, for sure. Again, today I have started this from my story, and before conducting the stream, I was thinking that I will tell a lot of things about how I enjoyed flying Antonov 2 on this agricultural flights, which were really exciting, really amazing. But once I started doing the stream, I think if I start talking too much, it will take time, it will be boring for others. So you asked a very good question about boring flights, about boredom in the flights. When you fly a jet like a 737 or Airbus 320 or 777, 747, how every flight looks like. You depart. Some pilots, they switch on the autopilot just after getting airborne. On the 737, the minimum height for the autopilot is 400 feet, by the way. I mean the 737 NGs and the MAX. And on Airbus 320, at 100 feet, you can switch on the autopilot, and halas, the job is done. I don't know really why the pilots are doing this, because for me, it's still very interesting to fly the aircraft, because I'm a man. I really like to drive my car. I really like to fly the aircraft, and this is something which I invest in myself. I mean, I keep updated my flying skills. But this is me. Other pilots are different. Maybe they have other ideas how to fly aircraft. But anyway, at one moment you engage the autopilot, and for another 3, 4, 5, 7 hours, all is the same. Especially if you fly to not busy airspace. I mean, you're flying over Siberia, or you're flying to Nairobi from Muscat. You can fly for half an hour or one hour, and you will not be called by a controller even. So you're flying straight forward. Let's say we are flying from Muscat to Calicut. You establish on track, and halas. Until top of descent, you are keeping the same track. Nothing happens. The weather is nice. No winds. No controllers, because you're flying in uncontrolled space. There's a HF radio only. That's it. And it's really boring to fly. If you're doing this every day, again, you're flying overseas, nothing to watch, nothing to look at, so nothing to stare at, no sightseeing, nothing. So this is a very boring part of our job. Of course, if there is a thunderstorm cell, an atmospheric front, whatever, cyclone, depression, this excites the flying greatly. But honestly, this is not that excitement which we want to meet every flight. We better fly without thunderstorms en route. And again, coming back to these ATRs, coming back to turboprops, coming back to small aircraft, this is a very different job, and I think this job is never boring. When you fly Antonov 2, it cannot be boring. It's another kind of job, of course. The payment is different, the destinations are different, the area of flying is different, but in means of flying the aircraft, I swear, you will never got a feeling that you are bored flying such kind of aircraft. In jet aviation, the story is different. This is another romance of flying the 737. I mean, opening new airports for you, new people, as I have said today, new challenges, like change to an international airline, flying with people from different countries. But in means of flying, honestly, flying these aircraft sometimes can be boring. For the takeoff, for landings, no. It can excite you greatly, especially when the weather conditions are windy, when the air is bumpy, when the airport is tricky, like Tivat or Chambéry in France, like Kathmandu. By the way, every airport one day can become a very tricky airport, but it means if we are talking about cruise portion of flight. When I fly as a passenger, honestly, what I wish to do is just to fall asleep at the beginning of flight and wake up at the end of the flight. That's it. If I would be given a chance to do the same in the cruise portion of the flight as a pilot, I will be happy. Make more streams in English. I will think about this. So far I have 149 viewers at this moment. Denis, is there a strict limitation for pilots with their weight? So far I noticed that all pilots have a proportional body posture. Honestly, it's really difficult to keep in a good fit when you are a pilot, when you are sitting for several hours in a stressful kind of situation, especially stressful kind of flight conditions, when you have a different schedules. This day you're flying in the morning, that day you're flying in the night, you consume food during night flights. Food is not very healthy, honestly. So normally it's very difficult for a man to keep a good fit. And the question is really good. Yes, some airlines they require pilots not to exceed a certain BMI. I think in Emirates again it is like 28. In other airlines I saw it was like 30. In my airline it's almost like this. I mean, this is for the candidates. As for their pilots, if you are more than 28, so the procedures during your medical assessment will be different. So you will they will take blood for tests, they will check cholesterol, they will check blah blah blah, a lot of things, so you'll be treated differently. So it's better to try to to lose some kilograms, not to be lower than 28 BMI. Denis, have you already thought how you will spend your stream when you get back to flying? Let's get back to flying firstly, and then I will decide what to do with the streams. What aircraft did you fly when you started? I started my flying career on Antonov 2. Antonov 2, I think, as far as I remember, the very first flight of this aircraft is as a biplane, by the way. And so far, this is the biggest single engine, piston engine aircraft in the world. And the very first flight is, if I'm not mistaken, was conducted in 1946. So this is 74 years ago. Am I right? Yes, 74 years ago. Just imagine. This is a very nice aircraft to fly, but this aircraft is really tricky because this is a tail dragger. I mean, this aircraft is equipped with a main gear of 2 wheels which are located forward, and there's a small wheel in aftward of the fuselage. And this type of aircraft, when they exposed to crosswinds, it's more difficult to control aircraft on the ground. And again, takeoffs are different, landings are different, handling is different. But at the same time, these aircraft are very good for short field performance because the speeds are quite low. And as for the initial training, this aircraft is not very good because it consumes too much fuel. In the Soviet era, it was not a big issue because they had a lot of investment into this industry. Once the Soviet Union collapsed, problems began. And as I have started from on this stream, I started from the story about myself. I said that in 90s there were a lot of problems with for cadet pilots because the flight schools, they didn't have fuel to provide flying hours. In I think it was year 2009 when all schools, they stopped using Antonov 2 for the initial training, and they started to use these foreign Cessnas, Diamonds, blah blah blah, which are much more fuel efficient aircraft. But Antonov 2, it's a very nice one. Should I learn 737 or Airbus 320? I love 737, but market seems to demand Airbus 320. There is no need to start learning any type of aircraft as long as you're just about to start your pilot training. But if you want to spend your time somehow, it doesn't matter which aircraft you start to fly in the Microsoft Flight Simulator or X-Plane. It's just like an investment to your own experience. That's it. Because when you will be selected by an airline, it will be, let's say, not your problem, because they will teach you how to fly this or that aircraft. So, but if you want to learn something now, that this time you might start learning whatever aircraft you want. It doesn't matter. There's no big difference. 737 or Airbus 320. See you tomorrow. I am a teacher in Domodedovo. Tell first-year students that the IQ alphabet is very important if they work on the ground. You mean this Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Whiskey, Romeo, Zulu, whatever? Uh, Honestly, I'm trying to find arguments. For me, of course, it's very important because if you start using just A, B, C, or whatever, you will not hear it, the letters distinctly because the pronunciation can be a factor. I mean, the quality of the transmission can be a factor. That's why in ICAO we use this Alpha, Bravo, let's say for taxiways, for runways, 3 to Lima, for the airway designators. If you want my opinion for your first year students, yes, of course, for sure, this is part of our job because this makes our job, our life easier when they use this alphabet. What are the navigation features, maybe requirements of flying over the North Pole? I don't know. I have never had such an experience to fly there. All right, so we have 4 minutes more. So if you still have any questions, I'm very ready to answer. Сергей Иванов, я уже 2 раза или 3 на русском ответил. Это ответ на вашу претензию. Have you heard about Tom Cruise going to India Sierra? No. So you said that first English stream will be an hour, but it's 2 hours already. Nice. As I have said several times today, this is investment in myself, first of all. So this helped me get more confidence. So I'm feeling now that I'm getting more confidence. So I'm more confident. So this is good for me because English is that that part of my job which is really important. If I'm more confident in just talking English on different topics, not only about aviation, for instance, this means that my level of coherency is higher, and I really like to have that feeling, and especially when I compare myself, I mean denisokan of year 2020 and denisokan of year, let's say 2015, these are 2 different guys, because that period, yes, I've got some English skills. Of course, I was evaluated as level 4 and I could communicate with other, but the level of confidence was quite different because I didn't have experience of just talking. I understood everything, but it was a difficulty for me to talk with other people because I didn't have experience. You need to train, you need to flex your tongue to talk to other people. Here, after having 3 years working in international airline, of course, I'm much more confident now, and even more confident than a year ago, and honestly saying, which helped me a lot was passing through the instruction selection process, because I had to push myself out of my comfort zone. I had to start talking in English much more than it was previously in flying. So I successfully passed the interview 1 year ago. Then I passed through the 2 types of instructor training, 4 days every training, and we used to communicate a lot during these 8 days of training. And after that I felt like it was like a push, and I started to talk much more fluently, sorry. So, but anyway, as I remember, one of my English teachers in the past, she was from the USA, she said, Denis, this is not a matter how you are talking, the matter is how people understand you. So these are really great words, because let's say in the Russian school, how they used to teach us academically, this was like, you need to be perfect. I mean, your grammar should be perfect, your vocabulary should be perfect, blah 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 should be perfect. And once you start trying to talk to other people, you are thinking about these rules, procedures, how to talk. But in real life, honestly, this is not really needed. When you talk to other people, you may have, let's say, much smaller vocabulary, and you can normally communicate to others. And this is what I saw here. A lot of people, they don't know English very well, but they can easily communicate because they're confident. They just talking. They make mistakes. They use different words, not correct phrases maybe, but other people, they understand them. And if you don't have this confidence, you will always be silent. You will try not to talk a lot. Not like me, I'm talking too much, I think. But as I have said, for me, yes, it's perfect because I feel more confidence. So this means that if I get into a situation in which my language will be really needed, now I'm talking about my profession as being a pilot. So this means that in this situation there will be very good chances that I will safely get out of the problem, because I can find different words, different phrases, so I can find different approaches to different people, blah blah blah. So I will not be sitting with the mouth closed when I need to talk. All right, are you kids able to pass ICAO level 4? No, for passing ICAO level 4 you need to be a pilot firstly, because the tests are designed to check your pilot knowledge also. My kids, they're not pilots. The 737 makes loud beep when I retract gear sometimes in FS6. I think you're flying the 737CL, or somehow you're flying the 737NG incorrectly, or maybe there is a bug in your model. But I think this is because once you retract the flaps, once you retract the gear and the aircraft, there is another system which checks the altitude of the aircraft and the position of the flaps, and if the gear is retracted, it gives you a warning. But this works for descent and approach, so I don't know why your FS6 model gives you that sound. You better ask the manufacturer. Who is it, PNDG or whoever? Have you ever experienced spatial disorientation during flight? No, thankfully no. And if not, why this happens to some pilots? This can happen to every pilot, and for me as well also. So nobody is protected, because the factors which can lead to having this spatial disorientation during flight, they are different. Let's say fatigue level, stress level, the turbulence level. So if all these factors are here together, so there's a probability that you have this thing here. Again, acceleration. At the same time you accelerate, you turn your head, you go down, the aircraft starts to bank, so your head goes crazy. So especially when you're really stressed and you're really fatigued. So let's say you have been working for several hours, it is a night flight, and so far I'm talking about this Rostov accident, because let's say Fly Dubai, they still insist that the pilots, they got into this phenomena of a spatial disorientation, but not spatial, by the way. This is somatographic illusion, which is caused by the false feeling of that the aircraft is climbing, but when the aircraft accelerates and there is no visibility of the horizon, so in certain occasion the pilot, the brain, starts to feel that the body is climbing, even though you can descend. But once you are accelerating, you can get out of the loop. You can even look at the PFD, you can even look at your attitude display, but you will not force your brain to think correctly, to to see the situation correctly. And these somatographic illusions, the spatial illusions, they are killers in aviation. It's good to fly together because normally only one pilot falls into this or that illusion, and another pilot, he's not. So I knew pilots, at least 3, who had got such experience in the past, and there were other pilots in the flight deck, I mean their colleagues, who solved the situation safely. Our company policy is saying to extend the gear at 1,800 feet AGL only. Why not? If it is your policy, why not to follow? I saw you extending the gear often at around 3,000 feet. No, not very often, only in very rare cases. There is actually no policy in my airline where to extend the flaps and gear, because it depends on the condition. Because sometimes you need to decelerate and fly quite far from the airfield, and sometimes you even need to decelerate as low as to use the landing flaps. It doesn't happen very frequent, but it happens. So if your airline is having this policy of extending the gear at 1,800 feet, so I don't know how to satisfy the ETC instructions in this case. If they say to keep, let's say, speed 150 and your flaps 5 speed is 170, so you need to extend flaps 15, but if you extend flaps 15 without having a gear extended, so you will get this warning alert. I don't know. You better ask your airline what was the reason to establish such a policy. I don't think it is really wise, honestly. The situation changes from flight to flight, from airport to airport, even in the same airport. One day the situation is different, so it depends. What difference is in ATC between FA and EAS? I don't know. I have never had experience of flying in the FA ATC. But the guys who flew to the USA from my airline, they didn't say that there's a big difference. So if you know how to communicate according to the EASA requirements, I'm almost sure you'll be easily communicating flying in the US. Does the radiation affect the health of pilots? For sure. But this is not that radiation, this is a cosmic radiation. There are good articles in the internet, so if you're really interested in this topic, you may search for this high altitude radiation or cosmic radiation, and you will find your answers. Because I mean, this is not like a nuclear radiation, maybe, which you might be thinking about now. This is a different kind of radiation, and the influence is still not very well known, honestly. In which speeds run up a gear tiller is disengaged? That's a very good question. But the tiller is disconnected from controlling the nose wheel once the aircraft gets airborne. So you can control the aircraft with the tiller when the aircraft is on the ground. But if you try to control the aircraft at higher speeds, you can easily over control the aircraft. So that's why it's not recommended, or some airlines, they directly prohibit using the tiller at speeds of around higher than 30 knots. Hi Denis, I am on final course of flight school. Have I chance for a job? This is a question number 1 of the stream today. At present moment, even me, with my experience, if I lose my job, I think that I will not have a chance to get a job, at least quickly. So for a pilot with a 0 experience, you should understand that you'll not be hired at this moment. But who knows what will happen in 2 years after this, after present moment. Nobody can predict. If I be able to predict the future, you know, I will I would have a lot of money. Victor Day. Thank you for replying. Good luck and thank you very much for saying this. Would you like to retrain on Russian MS-21 in future? Why not? Why not? If it will be a good aircraft, at this moment, I mean, it's a good aircraft is. When I'm saying a good aircraft, this means that this aircraft is already flying, which means that this aircraft has been already certified for flying. So far, the MS-21, it looks nicely for me, especially the flight deck looks nicely, and in February I meet guys who are working on the avionics of the MS-21. I'm talking now about the Russian version of the flight deck, and these guys, they are really young like me or even younger, and they are really enthusiastic in this job. So if the funding continues to be as good as it is, as the funding is now, so why not maybe at the end we will see a very good aircraft? Why not? Being a patriot, of course, I want this aircraft to be very efficient, very popular and very safe, but let's see. At least I don't see any problems of flying this aircraft in the future for me. This is an interesting aircraft. Do you have to pay the tickets for your family members when they fly the same airline you're hired? Once per year, we can fly to any destination for free. And we have got, like many other airlines, there is a special system, My ID travel system, which offers tickets for a very fair price. So we can easily travel with a lot of airlines with a fair price. But there's a requirement. There are two types of tickets, by the way. The cheapest tickets which you can buy are for free seats. So if this flight have free seats available, so you can buy these tickets and you can fly. But if the flight is full, sorry for that. You will rebook your tickets for the next flight. And there is also an option to buy tickets with guaranteed seats, but of course these tickets will be more expensive. In my airline, there is a system again for flights only for our airlines flights with very good prices, and I used to use these prices a lot when we flew to Moscow. All right, so hi, please tell me, I want to become a pilot. Where should I go to? First of all, you shall go to a flight school to become a pilot. So whatever country you're from, you need to get the information what is there, or what the schools are in your country. So I don't know which country you're from. Let's say if you talk about Europe, there have a lot of flight training centers which can teach you up to the CPL level. If you are from the US or whatever country, of course you will have a lot of opportunities for doing this. If you are from Russia, there's 1, 2, 3, maybe six flight schools or 7 flight schools. If you are from Russia again, if you are really interested, you can watch my videos, you can watch my channel. There is a video about the pilot profession. In Russian it sounds like профессия шофер самолета. So you can find this in one of my playlists, Avialикбезы. You can watch this video and you'll get all the information required. Don't you know when we expect the reopening of flights to Russia? I have no idea. Oh, I was about to finish the stream and I got a couple of questions. Would you fly to Dubai if autopilot fails? No, I cannot. Because they require the aircraft to be capable to satisfy the requirements of the PBN airspace. How can I become a moderator on your streams? Just ask me, Dmitry, my friend. During engine starts up on ground, assuming that first engine is already started, do pilots turn on bleed air from that engine or continue with bleed from APU? Can dual bleed situation be dangerous? Yes, we can. There is a procedure for hot weather operations. Once you get the right engine started, so you can still start the left engine from the APU. This is a normal procedure, by the way. So you close the isolation valve. So you isolate the bleed source from the right engine from the system, and you can use this source for the air conditioning system. So this is normally how we normally cool down the temperature during the hot season. So we start the right engine, we close the isolation valve, so we isolate the bleed air from coming into the APU duct, and then we switch on the right pack and we provide the conditioned air to the cabin to our guests. But if you're asking about the dual bleed situation, it can be dangerous, but only if you set a very high thrust. That's it. So during engine start, this is not required. What month, year, flight time limits for pilots are there in Oman? So 100 by 1000. But I don't know pilots who are flying for 100 hours per month. Maybe they are here, but a maximum hours I've got per month was like 85 or something like that. All right, my dear friends, thank you very much for supporting the initiative. It was a big pleasure for me to challenge myself, to challenge yourself. I think you got this pleasure also. So I'm going to finish the stream now. Again, I had a big fun talking to you. It was really interesting for me and really useful. So I think that later on, maybe next week, maybe in 2 weeks, I will give an announcement here on my YouTube saying the date exactly of the next streaming in English. I will be really happy to see all of you, to get your questions. Please don't be shy. Leave your questions here in the comments under this video, and you can leave your comments under whatever video you want. I always read all comments which you send to me, so I will select interesting questions and try to provide answers in the upcoming streams. Thank you very much. Stay safe, keep safe, and all the best to you, to your family members, to your beloved ones, and for whom it concerns, have a very good victory day. All right, thank you. See you.